Welcome to the Ibua Journal Conversations, hosted here at the Sankara Pan-African Library and Cafe. My name is David Kangye, and I'm glad to be your host. We are going to be in conversation with the contributors of the mirrors and happiness issues. So briefly, tell us your name and your role in all this.
Okay, so I'm Karungi Kwatampora. I work as the publisher with Ibua Publishing. It's a Ugandan founded publishing house, been in existence since 2018. We run, as part of our activities, we run a quarterly magazine, Ibua Journal, and my role is just managing that process and getting it underway successfully.
I like how you make it sound so simple and easy that you just play a role. Yet we both, between you and I, and the people who are watching this, we know that you play more than one role. In this conversation, you have a different role.
Yes.
What is your role?
So for this conversation, I guess we're going to speak about an essay that I wrote, or some of the writings that I have submitted for the journal. Yeah. Okay.
I think without wasting much time, let's just go into the detail of the essay, because yours is among, I don't know the selection process, but I also choose to think there's always so many they choose from to get to the few that make it. So congratulations on having yours as one of the essays that made it to this series.
Yeah.
In a minute or two, just tell us, what is Stillborn about?
So before I speak about Stillborn, I would like to speak to the process.
Okay.
So for these particular issues, mirrors our current issue, and then happiness, the upcoming issue, we run open themes, right? And so we invited from in-house as well as some other people within our network to submit whether essays or short stories and poems for both issues. With regard to Stillborn, so Stillborn is it's a narrative essay that focuses on toxic environments and how we process them, or my experience in a toxic environment. In this particular regard, it was a workspace. And that effect, the effect on me as well as others, because I wasn't the only one caught up in that space, and just processing it. And yeah.
Every day, I think, let's go back a bit. When we are preparing ourselves, or when we are being prepared for the workplace, there are some things we are never told about. And one of them is how to deal with a toxic environment. And oftentimes, one, you do not know that you are in a toxic environment. And even when you get to know, you don't know how to deal. But what is that one thing for you that stood out and you knew things were not as what was that one thing that led you to the conclusion that was a toxic environment?
I think maybe before I get to what led me to it, just generally, I think we are trained, whether it's a toxic work environment or a toxic relationship, we are trained to endure.
Yeah.
We are trained to see it as a failing on our part. Yeah. If we did better, if we were better people or performed better, then these things would not happen to us, or would be treated better. For me, I can't say it was one thing that led me to that process. I can't even say that in my case, in that particular situation, it was the abrupt end of it that allowed me the opportunity to be separate, and therefore to then process it in its true light. Because for as long as I was involved in that environment, I felt the need to stick it out, to keep going or stuff like that. despite all the fact, I was sick constantly, immediate friends and family were telling me I was in an unhealthy space, but I said no. Like,
you never saw it.
I knew I wasn't happy, but I always I bought into the narrative that it was because I was failing
as an individual.
Yes, I was failing at what was expected of me from that side. Yeah.
But also there's a fancy approach, if I may put it that way, towards failure, especially in the startup world, the corporate world. You will not make it until you failed. People build their glory in how many startups they have started and failed, and then there was this one that, you know, changed the story and all that. When you're failing, don't you feel like you're just ticking a box to the bigger picture?
I think there's a difference in failing. There's a failure that involves you trying at something and falling short of it, or, you know, whichever way you do it. I like to say that, you know, the difference between your very best effort and the mark is your growth opportunity, right?
Okay.
And I'm all about that. I'm all for that. However, there's a failure that becomes personal. Like it goes from your actions to the individual, right?
Okay.
And so, and I think for me that's the failure that that I struggle with. In a number of these environments, you find they are led by big shot names or big shot characters, you know, like I use the example of locker rooms, you know. You've got the screaming boss, the abusive, you know, kind of environment. But we are taught that to be able to handle that, that corrosive behavior, because it is, your ability to handle that sets you up for success. Yeah. My question is, at what cost?
At what cost?
At what cost, right? And so, and unfortunately for me, I have been able to work with people who don't apply, don't use corrosive, you know, practices to get me to be better. And I have worked with someone who did that, and so I could be able to, in retrospect, look back and say, oh no, you know.
So could you say you failed backward or failed forward? In this case?
In this case, question is, did I fail? Who says I failed?
Exactly.
As in that's the question.
That's where I want us to go, because you see, when this comes, the reason I'm asking you that question, because of two things, and I don't know whether we can talk about them separately. Expectations versus validation. We go into a workplace with expectations. Of course, first and foremost, you expect a salary, but also you expect to grow in career. Yeah. You expect to contribute something meaningful towards the place you've gone to, so that, you know, you leave a mark or you help the place to grow further. Yeah. These expectations are usually outside in. You have your personal, yes, it's usually the money and all this, but you have also the society.
You manage, yes.
Yes.
The external, yeah.
So could you say the weight of these expectations had an impact on you? Maybe in the first place, should we have expectations?
In a workplace?
Yeah, in a workplace. I
think yes. I think, you know, when you come into any space, you have expectations of that space, but also in that sort of environment, formal workspace, they have expectations of you, right?
Yes.
They bring you in to perform given tasks for given terms. Yes, there are expectations there. The issue is how are those expectations managed? How is the pressure around those expectations dealt with? And how is the process to achieving those expectations carried out, right? So I'm all about high expectations, meeting high targets and all of that. All of us strive for better. All of us want to be, you know, to be better, do better. All of, you know, that whole rhetoric. But to help someone be better, I don't think as a team leader, I need to break their spirit.
It's right? Because sometimes as a team leader, also in a box, you have a team where members are not, you feel, they're not giving their best. That way you're not hitting your targets, or you may fall short on hitting your targets. So you are forced to put in more effort, to push them a bit harder so that they can give you the results. Could it be a question of how harder you push, the process of getting those results?
Yes, and I think it also goes back to the individual, right? Like I mentioned before, I've worked with a boss, and I like to think this is someone I met in my early 20s, you know, when you are, you've got all these illusions, not illusions, sorry, but you've got all these ideals about life, right? Okay. And I remember my boss, thinking back now, this experience forced me to think about that experience as well. Thinking back and seeing how my boss handled that, right? The fact that I had all these crazy ideas, but I was not necessarily delivering as well as I should have been doing. And yet, by the time I left, I felt that I had grown as a person. I had grown as a staff member, like in my ability to do the job. And it was never without doubt that he believed in me, you know, for that moment, but also for what was to come, the potential. I hear a lot of rhetoric around potential, right? Oh, you have the potential for this. Oh, you know, you cannot do all of that stuff. But many times that is used as an excuse to then whip people into shape, right? And it's like, no, it's because you have the potential, or it's because I see greatness in you, or because I want you to get better. That's a good thing. Desire for me to be better, desire for me to, you know, improve, grow, get my weaknesses in line, desire all of that. But don't destroy me in the process.
At what point? You see, the thing about distraction is, especially, let me put it at the point of captain or team, the coach versus the players. You're working with a team, and they are individuals. The Pogba scenario. The thing is, at what point do you sacrifice your contribution as an individual at the altar of the team? At what point do you play as an individual? At what point do you play as a team member? When you have a leader who is looking at you as a collective.
Okay, so I think I'll speak to that from a team lead point of view. That when I have a team, when I'm working with the team that I'm working with, I have to see the individual. Right? I have to be able to see where they're at in their journey. With regard to their own, you know, whether it's their lives, I have to be interested in that because that affects how they work and how they deliver, right? So I have to be interested in that. And I have to be able to help them at that individual point. But then they come into the group, right? And for me, I find that that's the challenge, that I have to continuously be open to seeing the individual, working with the individual where they're at, allowing them the growth. Because I like that. I like the fact that when people come into our spaces, when we come into any space, that we have the opportunity to grow, right? I like that. I like that. So to work with them in their space, where they're at as individuals, and then see that dynamic on the team, right? I think that's important for me. Someone would argue, how do you do that when you have a team of, you know, thousands or stuff like that? But that's why you've got delegation, you've got, you know, different team leads. So while you might be at the head of 1,000, 10,000, you know, a staff group that is that large, you are not managing all the 10,000 directly.
Are you implicitly talking about having systems and structures in place? Because I think that's the only way you can be able to know.
I think, and that's the thing, toxic spaces often rely on individual, what would be the word that I'd use? So you've got the toxic culture really usually comes from individuals who have reign over the space, right?
Yeah.
Who have reign over the space, and that then translates into the wider system, and then it becomes the practice, it becomes the culture of the space. Because systems can be used to facilitate toxic environments. That's the problem. That's my hesitation, right? But yes, having clear policies that don't shift, processes that don't shift depending on who is questioning or who's caught, who's caught in the middle and stuff like that. So I'll give an example that in my experience, I had, we had the George Orwell, some animals, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, right? Yeah. And so you've got expectations. They're spelled out, they're repeated, they are,
and the expectations are for all the animals.
Exactly, right? So at this level, you're all team leads at this level, this is what's expected of you, right? However, the application of that, particularly with regard to, say, punishment, because punishment was a big deal in this environment, the application of punishment, how you arrive at who's punished and who's not punished, was skewed, right? So with time you realize, oh wait, some animals are more equal than others, right? So if you miss a target, and then you get punished heavily for that, but somebody else that is favored misses the same target, and no, we understand why, it's because they have problems, they've got challenges, and you're like,
maybe it's because the other animal didn't report their challenges.
Maybe that, but that just speaks to the fact that that uneven application of the organization's policies and processes was created unhealthy environments.
Charity, one of the hardest things is getting a job or a placement in an organization is already hard enough. Yeah. When you get one, the first thing is to make sure you don't leave.
You don't lose it, yeah.
Yeah, you don't lose it.
Yeah.
So the only way is the way upwards. And then when you are faced with all these challenges, at what point do you say, I'm done?
I think it varies, right? I think it varies for different people. Like I said before, for me, while I was done for a long while, I stuck it out. I stuck it out until my work was terminated, right? And when I look back, I think to myself how foolish that was, considering how unhealthy I was, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, because I had been sick for, physically sick for about a year, like just in and out of hospital, just, when you go to hospital, get checked, and the doctor says there's nothing wrong with you.
But you feel the sickness.
There's nothing, but you're sick. You can, you don't get out of your bed. Just doing the usual things is taxing. Do I have to answer my call, that phone call? Do I have to, report for this meeting? All the things that should be easy become really difficult, right? And that's how I was doing. I was doing life, but at the back of my head, like you say, I was willing to stick it out a bit longer. Like.
Let's bring this down to someone who is pushing themselves to pursue a dream.
Yeah.
And they are having these many challenges, because challenges come from all over and wherever. How would you advise people to approach this? Because you have a case which is related to yours, where there's a group and all that, but also there are people who are pushing things as individuals. What's the way forward?
I think ultimately it's to remember that the only asset you really have is you, right? Your mental state, your emotional state, your physical state. like that is, and all the other stats, that is what you've got for life, right? So just to be honest with yourself, do you feel that this situation is unhealthy? Most times we know. Most times we know. We are just hesitant we are just afraid.
Our own truth.
Yeah, we are just afraid to acknowledge that, right? Because we don't want to lose the job, we don't want to lose the relationships, we don't want, that kind of thing. We are afraid of what next, right? But to be honest with yourself, is what you're experiencing unhealthy? Is it making you sick? Right? That could be a simpler way. Is it making you sick?
Okay.
Am I happy to be here? Or is it just, talk to somebody else? Because sometimes, even as we tell ourselves, we can do it, as we speak to someone external to the process, they can help us clarify whether it's just, what? It's just, exactly, or it's actually something that needs to change. And then start the process. Like if it's a work environment, start to build an exit.
Okay.
Right? This job could be great, but it's not the only great job.
Okay. But you see, the thing is, okay, I hear you.
Yeah.
It's not the only job, but it's the only job you have access to for now.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying, build your exit, right? Because you don't want to come to a place where you walk away. Like it gets too much and
someone say
you walk out the door one day and you never come back. Like you're burnt out. No, you don't want to get to that point. So you just create an exit plan, like 6 months, 1 year, however long you can give it. And during that period, to be intentional about, sending your resumes, clean out your resumes, send it out, talk to people openly about, I'm looking for another job. Or
Someone say that the day you get your job is the day you begin planning for your exit.
I've heard that before. I love my job so much right now.
It's because you never know, save for a few people who get to sign contracts to know that I'm here for 2
years or something.
Yeah, before I begin thinking of my exit. Sometimes your exit is also as promised as tomorrow or never promised. So it looks. So I think it's a good idea to have that in mind. Yeah. But also I find that the entire essay goes on mental health.
Yes.
And recently, we were told we have 14 million Ugandans dealing with mental health issues. And the conversation about mental health never really comes out at the fore. We always talk about it behind closed doors when we have dim lights and, we can whisper to each other. But this thing, there is so much about mental health that we are not talking about or that we are not confronting. What is that one thing which stands out for you that you think we need to address about mental health? I know this is already a story, an essay you've written to address this, but what's your view, mental health and addressing challenges around mental health?
I think for me, one of the things that I hope will change is the mindset that mental health is fashionable now.
Fashionable.
Everybody has, depression or something like that. And I say that because I've spoken to, several people, some of them are my friends, that respond in that way. That, oh, yeah, okay, fine. So, you too were depressed, okay, fine, it's no big deal, right? My own experience with that is that it's been a difficult process, just maintaining wellness for myself. And so in this particular work situation, that was one of the things that I really struggled with. More so once I was detached from that environment, because for me that environment was not just work, it was also a major factor in my social life, right? So to lose that job
meant that you had
I lost several key relationships and things like that were tied strongly to that workspace, and it was, the initial years were pretty difficult. They were pretty lonely. They were pretty hard. Like I said before, you know, for the longest time during that process, I thought it was my fault. You know, I was failing. I wasn't meeting the targets that was set for me and the group. So therefore, my team lead had every right to call me names or call other people names in my presence. You know, they had the right to, because those things are, secondary trauma is trauma as well. You know, when you witness somebody else being berated and all those things affect you, right? Yeah. And so the years after this experience were hard, just being able to accept that
there's a new normal. Yeah,
there's a new normal, that what I went through was abusive, it was corrosive. Being able to accept that was not easy, but necessary. And like, you know, and also the fact that forgiving myself, because I felt complicit, you know. I felt complicit in it because it's like...
I think that's very important.
Yeah, like I enabled I enabled that, and so for a long time I blamed myself, you know, in that regard. So
you had to go through the 5 stages of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
That's true. I had to do that. But yeah, so it's now I'm very big on my wellness.
Okay.
My mental wellness. I'm very big on that. I'm quick to let go of things that
that
threaten my wellness. I'm quick to do that because I feel like, you know, I've been, sometimes I felt like I had to claw my way back to being well, and I'm not willing to risk that for anything or anyone. Wow. So yeah.
Okay. The good thing that it's you I haven't said, so I'll ask you, as we come to the end of this, tell us about how people can access the journal.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the journal right now, we are changing homes. We are calling it homes. We've moved. Okay. We were formerly ibuajournal.com. Now we are journal.ibuapublishing.com. Okay. So to access it, we ask that you subscribe to the journal. If you go to the website, ibuapublishing.com, you'll find a link to the site, yeah. And we take open submissions throughout the year.
Oh.
Yeah, we receive, yeah.
Because that was my next question, you preempted it, like who are the lucky ones who get to be featured in the Ibua Journal Publishing?
So I really love that process. So we have a submissions portal on the site, and you can send in your submission, essay, short story, though mostly short stories and poetry right now. The essays tend to come from in-house or a team, our immediate team of writers.
Okay.
Yeah, but short stories and poetry through the submissions portal. Then those are reviewed by the team, the ones that get approved.
And there's a subscription fee?
No, to read the content, so we've got some content that is behind a paywall.
Okay.
To read that, you'll need to subscribe.
At how much?
That is 50,000 for an annual subscription.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your time, for sharing with us about your essay, and I've had the honor of reading it, so I know other people will be excited when they read it. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much, and we look forward to reading more from you. I don't know what you're building, but I know people are always writing something, so we can't wait.
Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching this episode of the Ibua Journal Conversations. A big thank you to our host, Sankara Pan-African Library and Cafe. To watch more of these conversations, visit www.ibuapublishing.com.